The U.S. Prometheus hung in the void, its engines idling as Commander Rachel Voss stood on the bridge, surveying the quiet stars. The crew had been working tirelessly for weeks, keeping an eye on human colonies scattered across the galaxy, ensuring peace and stability. It was supposed to be a routine mission. At least, that's what they thought. Voss was a seasoned leader, known for her calm under pressure, but even she couldn't shake the nagging feeling in her gut. There was a growing tension in the galaxy. Rumors of a coalition of alien races forming in the shadows, whispers of plans to eradicate humanity once and for all. But those were just rumors, right? Nothing substantial had ever come of them. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, alarming blare of red lights and a shrill warning from the comms officer, Lieutenant Carter. "Commander, incoming transmission from Vesper 9. It's an emergency. They're under attack." Voss' heart skipped a beat. Vesper 9 was a peaceful agricultural colony on the outer rim, far from the front lines of any known conflict. Why would anyone attack them? "Patch it through," Voss ordered, her voice steady but betraying a hint of urgency. The image of Vesper 9's governor flickered onto the main screen. His face was a pale mask of fear. "Commander Voss, this is Governor Aldrich. We are under attack. Alien ships, overwhelming numbers. They're bombing civilian sectors. His transmission was cut short as an explosion rocked the feed, and static replaced his voice. Voss clenched her fists, her mind racing. This wasn't just a random raid. Whoever had struck Vesper 9 was sending a message, and it wasn't one of negotiation. "Set course for Vesper 9, maximum speed," she ordered. The crew scrambled into action, the bridge humming with the sudden urgency. As the Prometheus rocketed toward the colony, Voss stood still, her mind focused on the task at hand. She wasn't just the commander of a warship. She was the lifeline for the thousands of humans now caught in the crossfire. If they were to survive this, she'd need to rely on everything she knew about strategy, warfare, and humanity's greatest strength, their resilience. Minutes later, the view from the forward observation window revealed the horrific scene. Alien warships, sleek, angular, and massive, floated above Vesper 9, raining down destruction upon the colony's surface. Buildings crumbled, and plumes of smoke filled the sky. This was no ordinary invasion. It was an extermination. "We won't make it in time to stop the worst of it," Voss muttered to herself, a cold rage rising within her. But they could still fight back. "Deploy all fighters. Prepare to engage the enemy," Voss barked. The U.S. Prometheus tore through space at full speed, the starry backdrop streaking by as if mocking the urgency of their mission. As they neared Vesper 9, Commander Voss stood resolute on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the forward viewport. The devastation unfolding before her was unlike anything she had witnessed before. The alien ships, hovering above the colony, unleashed waves of energy blasts that vaporized entire buildings, turning vibrant human habitats into ash. "Commander, we've reached the combat zone." Lieutenant Carter's voice broke through the tension. "Enemy warships are in range." Voss nodded, though the weight of the situation was heavy on her shoulders. The Prometheus wasn't just a symbol of human might. It was their best chance at stopping this slaughter. The Federation had grown accustomed to peace, but now it was time for humanity to remind the galaxy what they were capable of. "Launch all fighters," she ordered, her voice steady but sharp. "Target the nearest cruiser, and prepare to engage with full force." The starboard side of the Prometheus erupted as the fleet's fighters shot out like a swarm of angry hornets. The small, agile ships weaved through space, dodging incoming fire, as they zeroed in on the massive alien warships. They didn't have the firepower to match their enemies, but they had speed, precision, and something the aliens didn't expect: human ingenuity. The first clash was swift. The fighters swarmed the nearest alien ship, peppering its hull with smaller guided munitions. The alien vessel returned fire, sending energy blasts that disintegrated several of the human fighters. But the remaining ships darted in and out of the alien cruiser's defenses, targeting weak points and forcing the larger vessel to buckle under the relentless assault. Direct hit on their forward shields. Lieutenant Carter called out, his eyes glued to his console. Voss allowed herself a tight smile. Good work. Keep the pressure on them. We need to slow them down long enough to evacuate the civilians. But the battle wasn't won yet. As the Prometheus moved into firing range, Voss saw the true scale of the invasion force. The enemy was well coordinated, their ships communicating in real time, cutting off escape routes, and systematically bombarding anything in their path. We need to take out their command ship, Voss muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Her strategy was simple: cut the head off the snake. If they could neutralize the alien flagship, the rest of the invading fleet would crumble in disarray. But doing so meant getting dangerously close to the heart of the enemy formation, and the risks were immense. Helm, bring us to point-blank range with that flagship. All weapons, prepare to fire on my mark. The crew responded quickly, tension crackling in the air. The Prometheus swung around in a sharp arc, its massive guns coming into position. As they closed the distance, Voss could almost feel the weight of the moment. The Prometheus wasn't just a ship now. It was humanity's defiance, the fire that would burn through the darkness of the galaxy. All systems locked. Fire, Voss shouted, her voice echoing through the bridge. The Prometheus unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma beams tore through space, impacting the alien flagship with a deafening roar. The shields flared and crackled, but the human firepower was too much. With a sickening lurch, the alien ship buckled, its hull groaning as it slowly began to break apart. For a moment, Voss let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. But the battle wasn't over. The enemy still had strength in numbers. Prepare for a counterattack, she ordered, her voice calm, but with a hint of resolve. We're not done yet. The Prometheus limped back into formation after the harrowing battle above Vesper 9, its hull scorched by enemy fire, its engines struggling to stay at full power. Despite the victory, Voss knew that the real fight was only just beginning. The alien flagship had been crippled, but it was clear now that the invasion was not an isolated event. The alien coalition wasn't just trying to conquer a single planet. They were wiping out humanity across the galaxy. We've sent a distress signal to Federation Command, Lieutenant Carter reported, his voice tight. But the nearest reinforcements are days away. Voss stood at the center of the bridge, her mind already racing through potential strategies. There was no time to wait for backup. If they didn't act swiftly, Earth itself would be next on the aliens' list. Contact all fleet commanders, she said, her voice cutting through the tension. Tell them to prepare for a coordinated counteroffensive. We hit them now, before they regroup. The crew went to work, relaying orders to the Federation's remaining warships, now scattered across the outer colonies. The alien force had more ships than humanity, and each vessel was a formidable force on its own. However, the aliens lacked something that humanity had in abundance: adaptability. Commander, we've analyzed the enemy's tactics, Lieutenant Carter continued, his fingers flying over his console. They rely heavily on coordinated strikes, using their superior numbers to overwhelm us. Voss nodded. Then we'll force them to adapt to us. She turned to the tactical officer, Lieutenant Bowers, who was running a series of simulations on the enemy fleet's patterns. We'll launch a series of hit-and-run missions, harassing their supply lines and weakening their strength. We'll never be able to face them head-on, but we can bleed them dry. Understood, Commander, Bowers replied, tapping his screen. I've already identified key weak points in their logistical support network. We can disrupt their reinforcements and fuel supplies with precision strikes. The Prometheus was battered, its systems barely holding together after the battle. But the crew had faith in their commander. Humanity was small, but they had ingenuity and tenacity on their side. As the fleet set course toward the nearest alien supply depot, Voss couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. The aliens had been ruthless, but why had they attacked Vesper 9 so mercilessly? This wasn't just a military strike. It was a message, an attempt to crush any hope humanity had of fighting back. The coalition wanted to break their spirit. "I'll never let them win," Voss muttered to herself, more fiercely than before. It wasn't just the colonies that were at stake. It was the very heart of humanity's future in the stars. The Prometheus emerged from the warp in the vicinity of the alien supply depot, its weapons locked and ready. They were a small force, but they would do more than just attack. They would send a message. "Helm, full speed ahead," Voss commanded. "This time, we make them pay." The human fleet charged into the enemy position with shocking speed. The first wave of enemy ships was caught off guard, their formation in disarray as Voss and her team struck with precision. The Prometheus released a barrage of missiles, targeting key fuel tanks and supply lines, crippling the alien fleet's ability to stay fully operational. The first success was small, but it sent ripples throughout the coalition. The humans were no longer the prey. They were predators. But just as Voss began to feel a surge of hope, a sudden, chilling realization hit her. The aliens weren't just using brute force. They were learning, adapting, evolving their tactics to counter humanity's strikes. "We've drawn their attention," Voss muttered grimly. "They're not going to stop until they crush us completely. Hook. Then we'll make them regret underestimating us," Voss replied, her voice steel hard. As the alien counterattack began to unfold, the small, unexpected victory against the alien supply depot had given humanity a brief respite, but Voss knew the enemy would not let them off easy. In the days that followed, their strategy of harassing the coalition forces continued, but the aliens were adapting faster than anticipated. As the Prometheus moved deeper into enemy territory, Voss couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. Every success seemed to bring about a fiercer retaliation. On the bridge, the atmosphere was tense, but Voss remained focused. "Prepare for a major assault," she said, her voice sharp. "We've learned enough to strike a serious blow, but it won't be easy." Lieutenant Carter looked over the latest intelligence, his brow furrowed. "Commander, we've located the heart of their fleet, an enemy flagship we believe to be controlling their operations. If we take that down, we cripple their command structure." "Then that's our next target," Voss replied. She knew it would be risky, but if they were going to win this war, they needed to take the fight to the enemy, not just react to their attacks. If they could neutralize the flagship, they could disrupt the entire coalition offensive. But as Voss formulated the plan, Lieutenant Bowers interrupted. "There's something strange going on. We've been monitoring their communications. There's talk of a new weapon, something big. I think they're preparing to deploy it against Earth." Her stomach dropped. Earth, the cradle of humanity. The one place they couldn't afford to lose. If the alien forces had developed a weapon capable of destroying the planet, it would mean the end of humanity as a species. "We need to act quickly," Voss said, her voice low with resolve. "We'll infiltrate their flagship and find this weapon before they can use it, gather all available intelligence, and make sure we're ready for whatever we encounter." The Prometheus and its fleet navigated through treacherous asteroid fields and space debris as they closed in on the alien flagship's location. The tension was palpable, every human ship moving in tandem, each one aware that this would be the most dangerous mission they had ever undertaken. They'd reached the flagship's perimeter. It was a massive, intimidating vessel, like nothing they had seen before. A vast, jagged behemoth that looked like it was built for nothing but destruction. Voss could see why it was the center of the enemy command. It had firepower that could decimate entire fleets. "We'll need to get inside," Voss said, locking eyes with her crew. "I'm leading a strike team aboard. Bowers, you'll take charge of the Prometheus while we're gone." Bowers nodded, but Voss saw the concern in his eyes. "Are you sure this is the right move, Commander?" "The right move was made when we started this fight," Voss said firmly. "We end it here." As Voss and her team prepared to board the enemy vessel, she couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens were more than just invaders. They were calculating, methodical, and ruthless. It wasn't just about defeating humanity for them. It was about sending a message to the galaxy. Her team boarded their stealth ships and approached the alien flagship, cloaked and silent. Voss felt a tightness in her chest. This mission could very well be a one-way trip, but she couldn't afford to think about that. Not when Earth, and the future of humanity, was on the line. "Let's get this done," she said to her team, her voice calm but filled with determination. "We're not leaving without answers." The stealth ships carrying Voss and her team slipped into the belly of the alien flagship like shadows in the night. The mission was a gamble, a high-stakes operation, where every second counted. If they failed, the Prometheus and the entire fleet would be left at the mercy of the Coalition. Worse, Earth would be defenseless against whatever weapon the aliens had prepared to destroy it. Voss took a deep breath as she surveyed the inside of the alien ship. It was nothing like human vessels. The corridors were vast and serpentine, lined with dark, metallic surfaces that seemed to pulse with an eerie, unnatural energy. Every step echoed in the cold silence, heightening the sense of danger. They had to be quick. Time was running out. "Move out," she whispered to her team, hand gripping the hilt of her pulse rifle. Each member of her squad, specialists from different branches of the Federation, followed in lockstep, their movements fluid and practiced. They had trained for this moment for months, but the weight of the unknown was something they couldn't prepare for. The enemy's technology was far beyond theirs, and the risks were far greater than any simulation. "Stay sharp," Voss ordered, her voice steady, despite the rising adrenaline. "Our objective is to find their superweapon and disable it before they can deploy it." The clock's ticking. They advanced deeper into the heart of the ship, moving through sections of the vessel that seemed to shift and twist as if alive. The walls themselves seemed to hum, and strange, alien symbols lit up in patterns Voss couldn't decipher. The further they went, the more disorienting it became. They weren't just on an alien ship, they were on the front lines of an entirely different civilization's weapon of war. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed throughout the ship, and an announcement in an alien language reverberated through the halls. The enemy had detected them. "We've been compromised," shouted Sergeant Hatcher, one of her squad leaders. "We need to move faster." "Keep moving," Voss ordered, her jaw clenched. There was no turning back now. The team pushed forward, cutting down a handful of alien patrols along the way. Every encounter was a brutal reminder of the power their enemies wielded, but the Federation soldiers were relentless. They fought with everything they had, knowing that the fate of humanity rested on their success. They finally reached the core of the ship, a massive chamber where a glowing crystalline structure stood at the center. Voss recognized it immediately. It was the superweapon. Its energy output was immense, and even from a distance, she could feel the pressure building in her chest. This was it, the weapon that could destroy Earth. "Set the charges," Voss barked. She and her team began planting explosive devices along the base of the crystal, ensuring it would be completely disabled when detonated. As the last charge was set, Voss's communicator crackled to life. "Commander, we've got a major problem." Bauer's voice came through, his tone urgent. "The alien flagship is deploying a fleet of dreadnoughts. They're heading straight for Earth. You need to get out of there now." A surge of dread washed over Voss. Earth. Her home. The very thing they had all fought for. If those dreadnoughts reached the planet, there would be nothing left. "We're on our way," Voss replied, her mind already calculating the quickest route back to the Prometheus. "Detonate the charges and get out of there." As the countdown to detonation began, the team sprinted for the nearest exit, but they weren't fast enough. The ship's gravity systems activated, and massive doors slammed shut in front of them, sealing off their only escape route. "Move," Voss shouted. But before they could react, an explosion ripped through the ship's core, and the entire chamber shuddered. The superweapon was gone, but now they had a new problem: getting off the flagship alive. The ship shook violently, and Voss was thrown off her feet as another explosion rocked the alien flagship. The countdown to detonation had been successful, but now they were caught in the blast radius. The superweapon was disabled, but the ship was falling apart, collapsing in on itself, as if the heart of it had been ripped out. Voss struggled to her feet, her pulse racing. "Everyone, move," she shouted, barely able to hear her own voice over the deafening alarms and the groaning hull. Her team scrambled, each soldier instinctively reaching for their weapons, while looking for the fastest route back to the extraction point. The clock was ticking. The charges they had set would detonate in minutes, but they couldn't afford to wait. Sergeant Hatcher was already running ahead, but a blast from the collapsing ship sent debris hurtling through the corridor, blocking their path. "This way," Voss barked, pointing toward an emergency exit that led to the outer docking bay. The team didn't hesitate. As they sprinted down the twisting hallways, alien war cries echoed through the corridors. The enemy was coming for them. More soldiers, more patrols, all mobilizing to defend their dying ship. The walls pulsed with energy, now malfunctioning in their desperation to repair themselves. "We need to pick up the pace," Voss said, voice tight with urgency. "They won't give us a second chance." Suddenly, the entire corridor ahead collapsed in on itself as a massive explosion rocked the ship again. The crew stumbled, just barely managing to stay upright as the shockwave sent them reeling. "We're running out of time," Hatcher yelled, dust and smoke filling the air. Voss pushed forward, her breath ragged as she led the charge. She could feel the walls trembling beneath her, and it was clear now that the flagship was no longer just a vessel. It was a ticking bomb, ready to implode. The blast radius from the destruction of the superweapon would take out everything. If they didn't get off the ship soon, they would be caught in the explosion, along with the entire enemy fleet. They'd reached the docking bay, but their escape was far from guaranteed. The large bay doors were sealed, and the ships they had arrived in, stealth transports, were on the far side, too far to make it without being intercepted. "Seal the entrance," Voss ordered, pulling out her sidearm. They had no choice now. The door was the only thing separating them from a certain death on the flagship. The team set up a defensive perimeter, taking cover behind metal crates and reinforcing walls as the sound of alien soldiers grew louder. Voss heard the unmistakable thudding of footsteps, foot soldiers preparing to make their final stand. A hatch opened above them, and out of the smoke and dust, the Prometheus dropped down, hovering just above the ground. The extraction ship. Voss' heart skipped a beat, but just as they made a move to board, an explosion from the ship's hull rattled the ground beneath their feet. An enemy warship had arrived. "Take cover," Voss shouted, her voice fierce. The Prometheus was barely out of range, but the remaining alien ships opened fire, their plasma blasts lighting up the air. Voss pushed forward, knowing that there was no time to waste. The enemy ships would stop at nothing to ensure the mission failed. The team charged for the extraction ship, firing back as they went, pushing their bodies to the limits of endurance. A hail of plasma fire rained down on them, forcing them to dive for cover. "Commander, we've got incoming," Hatcher yelled, pointing to the sky. A massive alien warship was coming in for a strafing run, its weapons charging for a direct hit. Voss made a split-second decision. She turned to her team. "We'll never make it if we wait here. I'm going to give us a chance. Cover me." With that, she stood tall, ignoring the burning sensation in her legs, and sprinted straight toward the ship, drawing fire from the alien warship in a last-ditch effort to protect her team. Bullets whizzed past, and explosions erupted all around her. Every second felt like an eternity, but Voss didn't stop. She couldn't. Just as the alien ship released its deadly payload, a volley of fire from the Prometheus slammed into it. The warship staggered, its blast missing Voss by inches. She dove into the extraction ship, collapsing into the seat as the door slammed shut behind her. "Go, go, go," Voss barked, gasping for breath. The Prometheus surged upward, the alien flagship collapsing into the darkness below, its death rattle filling the air as they broke free from the wreckage. They were alive. But Voss knew the battle was far from over. As they ascended into space, her thoughts turned to Earth. The dreadnoughts were still on their way, and this war was far from won. The Prometheus rocketed into the void, leaving the crumbling remains of the alien flagship behind. Voss leaned back in her seat, trying to steady her breath, but there was no time for rest. The mission had been a success. They'd destroyed the alien superweapon, crippled their flagship, and made it out alive. But the war was far from over. "Commander, we've got incoming." Lieutenant Carter's voice crackled over the comms. "Multiple dreadnoughts are in pursuit. They've already deployed fighters. We'll need to fight our way out." Voss felt her stomach drop. The Prometheus was severely damaged, and the fleet was in no condition to face such overwhelming firepower. These dreadnoughts were the aliens' ultimate weapon, the backbone of their assault fleet. If they reached Earth with full force, there would be nothing left to protect humanity. Earth's defenses were still vulnerable, and the Federation wasn't ready for a battle on this scale. "Carter, start evasive maneuvers," Voss ordered, her voice cold and steady. "We need to buy time." The Prometheus veered hard to the right, its engines straining as it twisted through space. The alien dreadnoughts weren't just massive. They were heavily armed, with shields capable of withstanding everything the Prometheus could throw at them. But it didn't matter. Humanity was about to show the galaxy something they hadn't seen before, the full force of desperation and determination. Voss stood from her seat, pacing the bridge as the tension built. She didn't need to hear the reports. She could feel it. The fight was coming, and it was going to be brutal. But if there was one thing humanity had proven in this war, it was that they fought with everything they had when it counted. "All remaining fleet ships, prepare for battle," she commanded. "We hit them hard and fast. We don't wait for them to make the first move." The crew scrambled into action, but Voss' mind was already racing. They didn't have enough firepower to match the dreadnoughts head-on, but if they could outmaneuver them, they could exploit weaknesses in the alien ships' formations. Their fighters were a fraction of the number the enemy had, but they had speed and agility on their side. Human ingenuity in motion. Her fingers hovered over the comms. "Bowers, I need you to coordinate with the fleet. We're going to need to hit these dreadnoughts at the same time. Synchronize our fire." "Understood, Commander," Bowers responded. "We're locking in coordinates now." The enemy fleet was closing in, their massive ships dwarfing the Prometheus in size, but the Federation's smaller, more nimble vessels began to scatter. Each one took a position, drawing the alien ships into a trap. It was risky, baiting the dreadnoughts to follow them into a kill zone, but it was humanity's only chance. Voss felt the familiar rush of adrenaline surge through her as the first barrage of enemy fire slammed into the Prometheus shields. She could feel the ship shudder beneath her, but the shields held. "Fire," Voss ordered, her eyes fixed on the enemy. "All weapons, target their engines. We need to cripple them before they can deploy full firepower on Earth." The Prometheus and its fleet fired in unison, launching plasma bursts and missile salvos at the advancing dreadnoughts. The first salvo hit its target, the alien ship's rear engines erupting in a violent explosion. But it wasn't enough. The alien flagship retaliated with a devastating barrage of its own. The Prometheus rocked violently, nearly throwing Voss off her feet. "We've lost 2 of our fighter wings," Lieutenant Carter reported, his voice strained. "They're pushing back hard. We're outnumbered." Voss gritted her teeth. They couldn't afford to lose any more ships. She needed to think fast. "Carter, get us into their blind spot. We need to outmaneuver them." The Prometheus veered off, diving toward an asteroid field to the right, using the debris as cover. The alien dreadnoughts weren't designed for such a maneuver, but the Prometheus was. Its crew was used to high-risk tactics. "We've got one shot at this," Voss muttered under her breath. "Bowers, fire everything we've got. Target their power core." The Prometheus surged forward, emerging from the asteroid field with deadly precision. The alien ships followed, but they couldn't adjust in time. With one final, coordinated volley, the Prometheus struck the power core of the closest dreadnought, causing an explosion so massive that it ripped through the surrounding ships like a chain reaction. The explosion took out 2 more of the dreadnoughts in a single blow, and the remaining ships began to scatter. The tide of the battle was shifting, but Voss knew they couldn't afford to stop. "Full speed ahead," she ordered. "Earth is still in danger. We finish this now." The Prometheus surged forward, its engines roaring as it raced to Earth, leaving the debris of the alien dreadnoughts behind. But as they entered the final stretch of their journey, a new threat emerged from the dark reaches of space. Another massive ship, far larger than anything they'd encountered. "Incoming." "Something's wrong," Carter warned. "This is no regular dreadnought." Voss' heart sank. The final battle for Earth had just begun. The Prometheus accelerated toward Earth, its engines screaming as the battle with the alien fleet continued to rage in its wake. Voss sat in her command chair, staring out at the black expanse of space ahead, the faint glow of Earth just beginning to become visible on the horizon. But her thoughts were far from the safety of home. The massive ship emerging from the void was unlike anything they had faced before. A ship so large that its mere presence filled the space ahead like a looming shadow. "Commander, you need to see this." Lieutenant Carter's voice broke through her thoughts, filled with awe and dread. He pointed at the screen, where the massive alien ship now appeared in full. Its structure was incomprehensible, with jagged spires and pulsating energy conduits running along its hull like veins of some monstrous creature. "It's enormous," Voss said, her voice tight with disbelief. "What is that thing?" Bauer's voice crackled from the comms. "I've never seen anything like it. Commander, it's transmitting something. It's some kind of signal. They're communicating." "Can we intercept it?" Voss asked, her mind racing. "We're trying, but this is unlike anything we've encountered." "The signal is too advanced," Carter replied. Voss took a deep breath. "No matter what it is, we don't have time to decipher it. We have one shot at this." Her voice was calm, but internally she was already calculating their options. The Prometheus and the remaining fleet were exhausted, barely holding on after the battle with the dreadnoughts. The alien superweapon had been disabled, but now Earth faced the ultimate threat, a vessel powerful enough to wipe out everything in its path. "Prepare to engage at maximum range," Voss ordered, her mind locking in on the mission. "Fire everything we've got, and pray that it's enough." The Prometheus and the remaining Federation fleet opened fire, launching everything they had at the massive alien ship. Plasma blasts, missiles, and energy beams ripped through space, all targeting the alien behemoth, but it barely flinched. The ship's energy shields absorbed the onslaught with eerie precision, as if it were an immovable force of nature. Voss ground her teeth in frustration. "It's not enough. We need to get inside that thing. We need to find a way to shut it down from within." "I'm ready for that," Lieutenant Bowers said grimly. "We still have our stealth pods. I can get a team aboard." Voss turned to him, her expression hardening. "Do it. But be quick. We don't have much time before that ship makes it to Earth's orbit." Bowers nodded, rallying his team, and within moments, the Prometheus launched its last remaining stealth pods, each carrying a small but elite team of Federation soldiers, including Bowers himself. Their goal was clear: infiltrate the massive alien ship and find the central command system, disrupt the ship's power core, or whatever was driving it, and stop it from reaching Earth. The tension on the bridge was unbearable as they watched the pods zip toward the colossal ship, dodging incoming fire from the alien defenses. The Prometheus held its position, firing upon the alien vessel as best it could, but they were outclassed. The alien ship seemed to be designed for one purpose: destruction on a galactic scale. "We've got contact," Bowers reported, his voice crackling through the comms. "We've landed on the hull." Moving in now. Voss held her breath, every second a countdown to what could be humanity's last. She trusted Bowers and his team, but the odds were overwhelming. The alien ship was a fortress, and their mission was nearly impossible. "Commander, we've detected a gravitational anomaly on the enemy vessel." Carter's voice came through suddenly, interrupting her thoughts. It's altering the space around it. The gravitational pull is increasing rapidly. If that ship reaches Earth's orbit, it could cause catastrophic tidal waves, earthquakes, and global devastation. Voss' heart pounded. They didn't just have to stop the ship, they had to prevent it from even reaching Earth. "Bowers, do you hear me? You need to shut this thing down before it gets any closer. Earth won't survive the impact." The seconds dragged by as the Prometheus continued its barrage, and Bowers and his team moved deeper into the alien ship, fighting against increasingly hostile alien forces. Every step they took felt like a battle for the survival of humanity itself. But then, finally, Bowers' voice crackled through once more, this time filled with urgency. "We've found the core. We need more time, Commander. We're almost there, but we're not alone." Voss clenched her fists. Time was slipping away. "We don't have more time," she shouted, slamming her fist on the command console. "Get that core shut down now." And just as she spoke those words, the ship shuddered violently. The alien behemoth had opened fire on Earth. The countdown had begun. The final battle for humanity's future was unfolding before their eyes.